Hey everyone, Steve the Amateur Historian. The bulk of the following, what you're going to hear, is just me reflecting a little bit more on the Joanna Lopez case after actually getting some decent information on it. It was, this recording was done just for frame of reference because, again, almost daily someone's going to come up with something new or, some analysis into it. So this recording was done on November 10th, 2021. But before we get into that, just a few little things. Namely, right here, this is one of the most recent things posted to Reddit. It's a screen capture of a Facebook post, and this is kind of significant, and because you'll hear me talk in this recording a lot more about how, obviously the quality of the image of Joanna Lopez is not great, and, people have been trying to enhance it best they can with whatever resources they have available to them. And again, if you don't know anything about the Joanna Lopez case, I suggest you go and, if you want to, you can watch the video that I put up just a couple days ago. Also, blame it on Jorge or blame it on George. I guess he accepts both ways. And Nexpo have both covered this if you want an intro into the whole Joanna Lopez mystery and you don't know yet. But I'd figure if you're watching this, you've probably at least seen part of my other video. So anyway, before we get into the bulk of me, just delving into reflecting on this situation further, this was posted, this screenshot was posted to Reddit from Facebook recently. And it's definitely the most enhanced version I've seen. It says the enhancement was done by apologies if I mispronounce his name, Karel Kulavi, computer scientist, image processing, signal process. So somebody that, knows how to do this stuff. And there's actually a posting with it. And I don't know if this is posted by somebody else who tried to post this image or if it's the original person that did this enhancement that tried to post this. And they discuss how Google is Google censorship. I posted this enhancement of the Joanna Lopez missing person photo to YouTube, where a missing person case is discussed. My comment is being shadow banned. Looks like it posted, but you reload page and it's deleted. When I try to repost, it also deletes my 2 previous comments. And so it looks like trying to post it on Google, which is freaking weird. But it was posted because this was posted to Nexpo's Facebook page. If you need safety, go to Nexpo. So it looks like there's this person saying that there's a lot of censoring and removal of their stuff, which in a situation like this that's just weird. This isn't a presidential conspiracy you're looking at here. At least I don't think so. But here's also what I want to get into is this individual discusses what more they've brought out of this image that, again, the weirdest thing to me was always the 2 white dots where the eyes are kind of supposed to be like they were glowing demon eyes. But then we realized that there was this person was wearing glasses. So what you're seeing is the reflection of light, maybe from the flash of the camera or just light that's in front of the person who's having the picture taken of them, and therefore it's reflecting off their glasses. But here's some takeaways that are expressed here in terms of the appearance of this individual. 1, she has exactly circular glasses. You can tell they're the really big glasses with thin frames that have 2 reflections of light, as I just mentioned. She has a narrow mouth with thick lips. Upper lip is short and inverted upwards, and her upper front teeth are prominent. Okay, so very thin upper lip, which allows the teeth to show a little bit. That's that little white spot you see in the middle of the mouth. Narrow, pointy, round chin. Yeah, I can see that definitely more in the enhanced one. Somewhat puffy cheeks. I almost get the vibe if her cheeks are kind of similar to mine, having kind of middle to higher cheekbones that really accentuate how your cheeks stick out. Eyebrows slanted sharply upwards. And that's all I can see because this is just a screen capture. But that's most of what I've seen recently has been, again, further efforts to try to enhance this image, trying to find success with that. I also saw somebody made a colorized image of this and posted it to Reddit as well. So I just wanted to let you know that before I get in, because I'm recording this the morning of November 11th. So it's the day after I did the rest of this. So, you're going to hear me in this thing discuss a lot how the image is so, grainy and there's so much we can't really take away from it. But yeah, even as I say that, efforts are being made. And when I look at this newly enhanced one, I still waver on the age, but I kind of get vibes that this is if you had to, just ask me, what do you think straight up? In the image I see that's been enhanced, I get the vibes that the, Joanna in the image, anywhere from like 14 to 18 years old. Like, I don't get the vibes that this is somebody over the age of 20. That this is probably someone who's a teenager, maybe in high school, the high school age. That's the vibes I'm getting now. Maybe there'll be even further enhancements and we'll get even a better idea, but that's what I'm feeling right now, age-wise, when I look at this picture. So anyway, all that said, let's get to the recording I did yesterday, just reflecting more on this bizarre situation. And I'm going to reflect a little more because I'm still thinking about it. It's hard to get out of my system. So one of my most recent videos I posted, which was posted completely on a whim, it's the video I did about this Joanna Lopez mystery. Just strange and bizarre. And I first saw it on a video that Nexpo did, even though Blame It on George or Blame It on Jorge, I guess both work. He had actually covered it like 2 weeks before Nexpo did, but I first saw it on Nexpo and then saw it, Blame It on Jorge's video. And when I actually looked up Joanna Lopez on YouTube, I was stunned to see that those were really the only, there was like, I think one other video up that was like a reaction video someone was doing to stuff, and that was one of them. But as far as like analyzing it, that was pretty much it. And of course there's copies of the videos in question showing these when these missing persons thing. And if you haven't seen the video yet, in short, as the story goes, and there's so many questions, in January 14th, 1989, there's this clip kept from the end of the broadcast day for Channel 5 Chicago, which was their NBC affiliate. And I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like the Museum of Classic Chicago Television, I think is what it's called. They have this like about 8-minute long clip that's like the last couple minutes of the broadcast day, and you see the ending when it's supposed to go to color bars, and you see them play the, Star Spangled Banner. And, at that point, the standard was it would go to color bars, and that would go through the night. This is before, the 24-hour TV cycle. But instead of going to color bars, it went to this kind of low-quality missing persons banner. Said missing, said Joanna Lopez, and a number to call, which was the number at the time for the youth division of the Chicago Police Department. And then there's the element of the whole thing visually that I think captures people's attention the most, which is the image of this Joanna Lopez, which is this very darkened image. A lot of the facial features are not that aren't that discernible. Like, you can see that she has like short hair, somebody who managed to brighten the picture up enough. Because I always wondered why she looked like she had these very angry eyebrows, but then we realized those were actually glasses, like frames. So she had these kind of big framed glasses. But you can't, like, people have guesstimated that this person, I mean, honestly, if you look at it, the image of the person, she could be anywhere from 15 to 35 years old, honestly. A lot of people think she's probably in her late teens, maybe early 20s. But it's so hard to discern. And the image, the quality of it gives off very much like this is like a photocopy of a photocopy of a copy of like a bad picture. And so that's kind of where the mystery began, was why did this randomly pop up at the end of the broadcast day? And what got me the most was, this is when, like, people know to stop watching TV at this point. There's nothing on. It's going to go to color bars, and it's going to have the tone, that kind of thing you wake up to in the middle of the night, and it scares the crap out of you. You're sleeping, you wake up to boo, and just the color bars and just stagnation on your TV, and it's dark and it's the middle of the night. I remember being like 4 or 5 years old and waking up to that. It scared the shit out of me, because we didn't even get cable till I think I was like 6, almost 7. So that's the beginning of the mystery, is why is this here? Obviously, I think what definitely helped capture people's attention is it's just scary. Like, I remember the first time the image popped up when I was watching the video for the first time, and goosebumps immediately on my arms. And even since I posted my video on it, which as of this recording, it hasn't even been 48 hours yet, that's been a lot of people that have commented. That's been their initial thing. Oh my God, this is frightening. This is going to keep me up tonight. And more than anything, it's just the quality of there's something about things when you see them and they're really bad quality. There's like a scare factor to that. I don't know exactly where it comes from. I don't know the biological thing behind that, but I know it's fairly common in people. So there's that scary, and this is the fact that it's tied into like this missing person, but there's no extra information posted, so it's mysterious. There's almost, creepypasta elements to it, which has led some people to, a lot of people question, and you have to at least put this out here, which is, it's such a tough line to walk, because this very well could be someone who disappeared. This could be someone who died horribly. This could be someone who came from a really bad home. The fact that the phone number with the image, if it is legitimate, was the number of the youth division of the Chicago police. A lot of people theorize that this was somebody who was in like the juvenile detention system. So if that was the case, how did that come about? Why was this individual in there? A lot of people, some people that end up in the juvenile system grow up seemingly having fairly normal lives. A lot of people grow up in poverty. They have abusive parents or abusive siblings, or parents that are like alcoholics, which of course alcoholism can turn to abuse. So there's all these, if it is legitimate, there's all these possible horrible things that this Joanna Lopez could have experienced in life. And then, what were the circumstances of her going missing? Did she run away? And if she did run away, what was her fate? And that can get really dark. You wonder, when people go missing, a lot of times it's because somebody killed them. So you're considering that end of things. Like, this person probably had a fairly rough life and maybe had an even more horrible ending to it. But then you still have to contemplate, if you're trying to legitimately research and investigate this thing and understand it, you have to consider the possibility that this is fake. And that's really rough to do, because you're considering, you have to consider for a moment you have to push aside the potential horrible things that a person experienced and maybe contemplate, hey, maybe this is a bunch of crap. And that's rough. So there's been a lot of theories put forth about that, whether this is just a straight up fake thing altogether, somebody. But what's interesting is, again, it's this museum of classic Chicago television. It's just like, it's an actual museum. It's a nonprofit that put this clip up that apparently was originally posted on Fuzzy Memories, because Fuzzy Memories has all this obscure stuff that you can only access because it's on there. Now, where they got that, who's to say? I don't know. So it could have been... But the thing is, so much stuff that was on I mean, that was a lot of this kind of stuff that ended up posted on Fuzzy Memories. And I want to say they said that this got posted in 2009 was when that clip, that 1989 clip, was first posted somewhere. At least that is known of. So that's the early days of posting viral videos and going on YouTube. That's the era where YouTube was still mostly people posting random clips of things they see, and a lot of people posting, the kind of stuff that might end up on America's Funniest Home Videos, but not a lot of people were actually like producing content for YouTube, and you weren't really making money off of it yet or anything. This was not really the era that... But again, I guess fabricating this and putting it up somewhere might fit into that. But anyway, the argument is, was this something that was fabricated? Because it's so interesting that the end of the broadcast day and then boom, it goes to this. And reportedly, that image of that missing person banner, when it went live in 1989, it apparently stayed up all night. Now, I have yet to find definitive proof of that. That just seems to be something that people are repeating, because the clip from 1989 again, it's only like 8 minutes long, and then the last, I don't even know if it's a full minute of the video, is the Joanna Lopez banner. So I don't know where the origin of that claim that was on all night, where that came from. If it's valid, that's just a claim that's been put out there. But regardless, whether it was on all night or whether it was on for 2 minutes, somebody had to either put that on there intentionally or allow it to happen. So people have suggested, who was working at the station at the time? Was this a prank that somebody pulled? It seems like a kind of, but then again, people's sense of humor, people's personalities, they go off in every imaginable direction. Because I think of that and I think this seems to be kind of an odd thing to pull a prank with. Like the classic network hacks that were happening at that time. There was always like an element of craziness and comedy to it, even if it scared people. You have the guy, I can't remember his name, but the guy who in the mid-'80s hacked the signal and posted the $9.95 a month for HBO? No way. And of course, there's the Max Headroom incident that I believe happened in 1987, which also happened in Chicago, which is interesting considering that's where reportedly Joanna Lopez went missing from. So if pranks are being pulled wherein a station gets hacked, there's always something kind of oddball or comedic about it. There's even been, hackings where they claim what was it? The one that happened in the late 70s where they claimed that the bodies of the undead were climbing up out of the ground. And even that, that was scary, but it was just so ridiculous that you look at it years later and laugh at it. You see this Joanna Lopez thing and your skin, I almost said curdles, that doesn't really work, but you tense up and it's kind of scary, and maybe that was the objective. But I don't know, of all the possibilities, I think that's one of the least likely ones, is that someone who worked at the station just pulled a prank. While it's still possible. That's what's so frustrating, is even ideas that are maybe seem a little bit far-fetched aren't entirely out of the realm of possibility. But I know there was another possibility posed that would also imply the idea that this Joanna Lopez doesn't actually exist. And I think it's a much more likely possibility than just being a prank. And that was that, and I hope I'm describing this right, but generally the idea would be that they were doing a testing for when you actually do need to put a valid missing persons banner up on your channel. And they did a practice one that was never intended to actually go live, and it accidentally did. And so the implication of that would be that, use a phone, let's use the youth division number, because then it can be like, this is a missing, because a lot of people that go missing are usually kids or teenagers. So that would make sense. Let's give her a random name, Joanna Lopez. And then let's just take a random picture and, slap it on there. And maybe that could explain why it's so poorly done, why there's not a bunch of extra information. Was like, this was just a practice run. And somehow, through some mistake, someone's wires got crossed, it ended up actually going live. It ended up getting slated to go live after the network was supposed to go off the air. And it wasn't planned. It wasn't supposed to happen. So maybe it seems like a stretch that nobody would. That's what seems so strange, is that nobody would notice if it was on all night long. You'd think at least one person there, even working after hours, would notice that. But that's kind of generally the theory, is that this wasn't supposed to go live. It was just a practice thing. None of it was real. It was just a practice for when they would actually need to put a real missing persons banner out there. So there's that. And I know it seems like a stretch. How would they accidentally end up randomly putting that on there? And let me tell you something. You'd be amazed how common accidents are, things that never should have happened. And even though you're working for a big thing like a TV station, there's a lot of people working there, and everybody's supposedly, experienced in all this, and random little things like this shouldn't go awry. You'd be amazed how easily things do, in fact, go astray. This is a completely different scenario, but it still shows how easy it is for random mistakes to happen. A wrong button gets pushed, something gets clicked on, and something that's not supposed to happen happens, and everyone's bewildered by it. Like, I'm on state-run healthcare right now. I have healthcare through the state of Oregon where I live. There was one year, I think it was 2017. It may have been 2016, but I think it was 2017, where 4 different times after and you have to reapply each year. So for a year, you're good. You have that health coverage. 4 different times I got sent a letter randomly in the middle of that year-long period, where the letter said, like, your case has been reviewed and you don't qualify for, these healthcare benefits. When literally it was a time where my situation shouldn't have been examined at all. And all 4 times, every time I called them, like, what the hell is this? They'd be like, oh, that was a mistake. I don't know why that happened. You shouldn't have got that, because you're I'm looking at your account and you're fine. But it still happens. Somehow, accidentally, my name gets picked. Somehow, accidentally, a letter gets published with my name and information on it. And somehow that gets mailed to me, and none of it ever should have happened. Now, obviously, that's a healthcare thing. It's not a TV station thing, but it just shows you how easy it is for random mistakes to happen. And I'm certainly not trying to push really hard that this is the explanation for why this happened back in 1989. I'm just explaining that mistakes happen. No matter the industry, random things that shouldn't happen do occur. Just recently, my girlfriend and I get this letter on our door, and it says they're going to do a one of those, inspections. And we're like, oh, okay. So we're more stressed about, like, oh, we got to clean the place up and make it look good now. And they say they're going to show up anytime between 9 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And I could barely sleep because I kept, every time I'd hear footsteps outside, I think, I'd wake up and be like, oh, they're here. And then it would just be some random person. So I leave for work at about 12:30, 1 o'clock, something like that. Still nobody's shown up. My girlfriend, because we didn't need to be there for the inspection, and my girlfriend was having a rough day, and she didn't want to be there with this random stranger in the apartment. So I went off to work. She went to her parents' place for a while. We come home, and there's no signs that anybody's been there. There's no note that says, like, and I don't know how these things work. I've never had one of these inspections done. And so, but there's no sign that anybody ever showed up. So my girlfriend calls the next day, and it's like, hey, so did that happen? And the people in the office are like, oh, this seems like a mistake. This shouldn't have happened. And we looked more closely at the letter, and it says it's like a pre-moving out. So it's like that inspection you do like right before someone's going to move out. And we're still at this point, we're still on a lease for like 6 more months. But, this is our first apartment. So we're not used to any of this stuff. So even though we saw that it was a pre-moving out inspection, and I thought that wording was kind of strange, I didn't know from anything. So there's another instance, like that never should have happened, but someone in the office printed out our names, our information, our apartment number, when all of our leasing information was there, and put this thing, hung this notice outside of our house, and it never should have happened. Okay, moving on, because I've been rambling about mistakes now for several minutes. So those are at least some of the ideas being put forward as to how this might have happened, wherein it's not real, and we're all kind of wasting our time chasing the wind, essentially. There's nothing there to grab. But while that's absolutely a possibility, and let's say the way the circumstances pan out, in the end, we end up actually finding the answers, and we discover that, there never was this Joanna Lopez that went missing from the Chicago area. There was never a Joanna Lopez that was in the, juvenile detention, a juvenile detention center here. There was just nothing. It wasn't real. You investigate things to find the truth, and sometimes the truth is not what you want, or the truth can make your efforts feel invalidated. And when you investigate something like this really deep, because there's people that have literally just scoured every database and system you can to try to find proof of Joanna Lopez's existence. I mean, we're talking hours, maybe days of work that people have put in who don't have to. They're not getting paid for this. They just want to know what this means. And, some people will say, wasting your time. I respect that kind of stuff. People who really, because if this is a real person, this is somebody who deserves justice as much as the next person. And if the way we find out about her and what she went through is through this random YouTube or these random videos posted online, and it's this random internet mystery that has all these cool, exciting elements and mystery and creepypasta vibes and all of that, if that's what ends up bringing people in and ends up finding a resolution to it, fine. It's better than the alternative of us never knowing anything. So I don't believe it invalidates your efforts if in the end you find out that this wasn't even real. It is and it isn't kind of the conclusion you want, because it can make you feel like your efforts were kind of a waste. You were chasing after nothing when all is said and done. But at the same time, you didn't know. And I can understand having a hard time seeing something like this, knowing that there might be something there, and just saying, well, it's not my problem. It's not, but that, there's this thing that we're supposed to do as humans in a civilization, which is called caring about each other. And it shouldn't just be people that that you care about, Like, I still think about this. When me and my friend Nick we did more urban exploration videos together. And we went and we found this abandoned house off in the sticks. Not too far away from the city, but far enough away. And so we got out and we decided to explore it. We were really into that at the time, and I still am. I just haven't done it a lot recently. And we go up to the house, and it's obvious nobody's been there forever. There's like several inches of moss over covering the driveway, lots of plant life kind of growing up the walls, but the house was locked up. So we couldn't get inside without like vandalizing the home, which we didn't want to do. And peering through the windows, I saw there was like a old beat up recliner and a box, like a cardboard box. That was like the only stuff that was in the house. So we kind of circle around it and we realize there's no way inside. So it's kind of like, this is a bust. And then at the last moment, we peer down and we see that there's actually an outdoor entry on the back side of the house into the basement, and the door leading into the basement is gone. It's just an open doorway. We can walk right into the basement. Now, the stairway upstairs to the main house, that was also locked, so we couldn't get any access to the regular house. But I remember exploring around this basement, and it was just cluttered with all kinds of stuff, and there was real cool stuff in there. There was like a big old grind wheel in there that you'd sharpen your, tools, that you'd sharpen your tools on. All sorts of like chainsaw parts. There was old magazines from the 50s, and I got a very strong vibe that whoever had lived in this house, probably, coming close to present day, was probably an older person. Maybe they passed away and, ownership of the house switched to somebody in their family, and they just didn't give a shit about the house, so they just left it out there to rot. I don't know. But I just got very strong. It gave off strong vibes that there was just some old man that was living out here alone in this house. He probably didn't have a whole lot and just kind of kept everything he had. So you have all this old crap just kind of strewn down in the basement. And it's all old. Everything down there is super old. And then I stumble upon a notebook that just reeks of the late 90s, or mid to late 90s. And it's obviously was like a girl's notebook, probably a girl who was like a sixth grader in middle school. And it had like, I remember it had like a picture of Jonathan Taylor. People would like cut out pictures of people and put them on their notebook that they vibed with. And there was like Jonathan Taylor Thomas was on there, who of course was like a heartthrob in the 90s for teenage girls. There's a picture of Will Smith on there, like Fresh Prince era Will Smith. And I flipped through it, and I wish I would have taken more time to look at it more closely and at least see the name, because there was homework in there. So I could have seen the name of the person who owned that, because this was so out of place. And maybe I'm just chasing nothing here. But ever since we explored that house, that notebook has stayed with me, because there was no signs that anything else a teenage girl or a kid might be into was in that house. It was just all this old clutter, chainsaw parts. It was very serial killer-y looking. And then there's just this one little thing that clearly belonged to like a teenage girl, probably 20, 25 years ago. And I still to this day wonder, seriously, and maybe it's nothing. Maybe this was like the daughter or the granddaughter of this guy, and she just left that there one day. But that doesn't seem to make sense, because it had like homework and stuff in it. Like, how would you just randomly accidentally leave that somewhere and not get it back? So I've always gotten vibes that maybe, that girl got abducted or something like that by the crazy old man that lived out in this house all by himself. And that, he could have abducted a girl on her way home, and that's why he randomly has her, binder from school. Now, again, I could just be chasing a pipe dream. Wouldn't surprise me if I am. But again, the reason I'm telling this story is because of how it ties into what I was just discussing, which is, something happens, and it's not your job to have to investigate it, but it gets your attention, and it gets your wheels rolling, and you want to know what this is all about. Even if you don't know, you still want to figure it out. So much in the way that I still think about that. I almost wish I could go back out to that house and see if that notebook is still there, and see if I can, see the name in it. For all I know, that could be someone who disappeared in the 90s. Probably not, but what if it is? Crazier things have happened. So I have respect for people that delve into stuff like this, even if it might lead to a total dead end, or it might lead to the revelation that this was all fake. There was nothing really to see here. But with the possibility that this could have been a living, breathing human being, which I think it probably was, if you want to invest time into understanding that and maybe figuring something out, reflecting on it, whatever you have to do, then I'm all for that. And that's kind of why I've started, because ever since I first saw it, I haven't really been able to shed it. And I see so many things, these strange internet mysteries online, but this one has really stuck with me, unlike any other. So therein lies the key element of this whole thing, which is trying to figure out the story behind this person, which is no easy feat, as we've seen. And I'm not even doing this to, pad my YouTube channel. Obviously, I've already done a video about this, but I'm fresh to the whole thing, which is why, I made it abundantly clear in that video, especially with how I made it, that, I'm still new to this. I haven't delved in as much as others have, and I'm still, learning the ropes, so to speak, which I know is more of like a job term, but I dive into the primary Reddit page, and it's about getting, more than anything, providing another area where the initial story can get out and you can see what people are thinking and reflecting on. So, very little of what in my first video was my own creation. I do an introduction where I discuss things. I show the videos in question so that you can get a feel for what this all is. But then, as I'm addressing the Reddit stuff, obviously that's where most of the conversation has been going on about this. And that is where you're seeing, the most discussion on, what does this all mean? Does it mean anything? Does it mean nothing? And delving into that. So a lot of that is what other people are saying. So that video was not, full-on investigation of my own making. So this here is more like I'm taking what I now know, which is fairly ample considering how little there is to be brought in out there. So I'm more reflective because I have more of that information in my head, as opposed to when I did that video where a lot of it was learning on the fly. Or, somebody suggests something, to be like, oh, okay, so what they're saying is this, and then I have to kind of on the spot reflect on how I feel about that. And this is more like, all of the ingredients have been poured in, they're churned together, and now I'm trying to think of, what kind of substance comes out of that. And really the strongest piece of evidence you have, in a thing like this, where literally you have a picture that you can't even really properly definitively match to any other person's, because it's so beat up. And I reference there was a woman who was discovered dead in 1994. And that's one instance where people have contemplated, is this Joanna Lopez? And again, you can't reach any serious conclusions because of the quality of the Joanna Lopez picture. But I just feel like there's enough facial differences that they're not the same person. But again, when a picture is in that bad a shape, it can trick the eyes. But yeah, this woman was discovered in a Chicago neighborhood. And mind you, this is theoretically more than 5 years after this missing Joanna Lopez banner appears on television. So a lot of time has gone by. And the individual who killed this woman, who either never got her name or never cared to get her name, was under the impression that she was working as a prostitute, which doesn't give her a name. And it's so frustrating when you think, even if somebody's a prostitute, they got to have at least some friends, some colleagues, maybe some family. We have pictures of exactly what this woman looked like. And obviously this is not the first time that this has happened, where you have pictures and all this stuff, but you can't identify who a person is. Our abilities to spread information across the internet are vastly superior to what they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But still, in a situation like that, you have to get that information has to land in the hands of the right people that actually know this person. And until that happens, you can have a lot of identifying factors and still not know, even in this day and age. And there's been a few more. A lot of people have combed through missing persons, databases, trying to find anything that can corroborate to that period of time, someone with the same name, someone that's roughly in the general area of the age that it appears Joanna Lopez is. Again, a lot of people feel like she's probably late teens, early 20s, maybe mid-20s. But based on the quality of the image and the fact that some people age faster or slower than other people, like, when I look at the picture, I'm like, that could be like a 15-year-old. And then I look at it again, and I'm like, that could be like a 35-year-old. I'm 35 years old right now, and so I even when I hit my, like, what was probably early 30s, people still thought that I was in, like, college. People thought I was in high school up till I was, 25. Some people just age differently. So it's another thing that's kind of hard to nail down. There's been other suggestions, like, just putting them out there, like, this person vanished around this time, is there something there? And it seems in most cases there really isn't. There's always one definitive thing that you can say, well, that shows that it's probably not the same person. So, if Joanna Lopez is real, what happened? And I was very taken with assuming this was somebody telling the truth, but one of the most recent posts, which I felt like was honestly more enlightening than anything else I'd seen on there, was from just a few days ago. I think it was from like maybe November 5th, right around there. It had been only like 2 days since it had been posted when I did my video. And I did my video on November 7th, posted it November 9th. So still, even when my video went live, it had only been about 4 days since I saw this. And it was posted by someone who stated that they'd actually personally had experience in the Chicago, juvenile system. And there were really two things that stood out to me about what this person had to say. And obviously, I was, just a little kid at this time. I was like 4 years old when this happened. And I have no history in the juvenile system, so I can't speak from a background or from direct experience what the system was like. But this person said that they had been in the juvenile system during the 90s. So it would be theoretically, if Joanna Lopez was also in that system, just a couple years after her, kind of in generally the same period of time. And this individual, one of the things they said was, it was a lot of the people that were in that system were people of color, Latino or African American. So it might make sense, because presumably Joanna Lopez, with the last name Lopez, somebody of a Latino background, and even with the low quality of the picture, it appears that the person in the picture is a person of color, not a Caucasian. So it would make sense that somebody of a Latino background would be in that system in the Chicago area, according to this, person who posted on Reddit. They also said that a lot of them had really, images they had, the pictures they had on file were often kind of low quality photocopies, similar to the one we have of Joanna Lopez. So, if that is accurate, then it gives an essence of validity to this whole thing. Why is this the particular picture being used? Well, that's the one that, they had on file of her. And if she's a missing youth, or she's a runaway, and she's someone that's been in the juvenile detention system, it would make sense that that might be the image they would use. You'd think when you see an image that poor, You'd think even back in 1989, there would have been people that have been like, people aren't going to be able to decipher what this person looks like with this picture. You think they would have maybe tried to find the family. Maybe they did. Like, that's the thing is, if this is a real thing, there has to be people out there that know about it. Now, it was 30 years ago. Maybe people who looked into it have passed on. I don't know. You would just think they would have tried to get a better quality picture. But again, I hate to go down this route, but this is America, and a lot of these kids that end up in this system, the system itself really doesn't care that much about them. And if you're a person of color, most of the time they care even less. So, here I am, white guy from the Pacific Northwest saying, don't you think, now I'm feeling almost like an idiot for even saying it. Like, don't you think they would have taken the time to find a better quality picture? And then I pause for a second and realize, wait a minute, look at the system we're dealing with. And the fact that it's no great secret that when it comes to looking for, an attractive teenage Caucasian person, I don't know why I included it's kind of the classic, some pretty white person goes missing, it gets a lot more attention than if a person of color goes missing, regardless of how conventionally attractive they may be. So, yeah, I think that was my whiteness coming out. But again, this is what I'm telling you right now. I talk to myself all the time. And one of the reasons I talk to myself all the time is it helps me clarify things. So right there, I could have just had that thought in my head, but I took the time to talk it over and pause and clarify it. And now I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell was I just saying? Anyway. So back to the matter at hand, which is this Joanna Lopez's background in this particular Reddit post. So that there was potential answers given as to why they would have that particular image. There were people on Reddit, found examples predating, this Joanna Lopez case, going back to the mid-'80s, of where very similar things were posted on major networks. Like, this was an NBC affiliate that she showed up on. And someone posted a few clips from CBS affiliate. And they were very comparable, the kind of sideways missing banner picture of a young person, but they would have their name. They would have their, height, weight, age, where they were last seen, and even the phone number to contact. It would say what that place was. And even though, a simple check could dictate to you that the phone number on the Joanna Lopez banner went back to the youth division of the Chicago Police Department, still on there's just a name and a number. So it's and that's how it's always been, is whenever there's a missing persons thing that happens, whether you're seeing it on TV or you see it on a poster somebody put up, even people that make simple homemade posters to try to help, a neighbor find their missing kid, they'll make sure when people's pets go missing, they'll put information on there. They'll put the breed of the dog that went missing, what color their fur is, how old they are, personality traits, might be skittish around strangers. People remember to do that basic information with their pets. And I'm obviously not trying to say that pets are insignificant compared to our missing children. Obviously, we all most of us consider pets a member of the family as well. But I'm trying to make a point that if basic people trying to help their friends find their pet dog think to put this information out, how the heck for a missing runaway person are you not doing those basic things? Whether you care about whether the person's found or not, those are basic things you do. So why is this missing persons banner so void of information? That's a real question. A real question that, like with so many other things, doesn't have an answer. And it adds to the argument more people have. Like, this had to be fake. Nobody would make something like this that was so void of necessary information. Maybe that's a red flag that this is fake. Maybe it was a last-second thing. So it got thrown together real quick. And again, when you've got a system that really doesn't care too much, a system that calls kids in the juvenile system throwaway kids, trash like that, you might just say, oh, just get the picture out there and just get it on there. And even then, it doesn't make sense why they would post, like, you post that during the morning when people are eating their breakfast, post it in the early evening when people are sitting down to have dinner, post it at a time where a bunch of people are going to see it. You don't post it in the middle of the night at a time where people objectively knew at that time the TV goes off the air. Nobody's turning unless they had cable, but otherwise nobody's turning their TV on, especially to a local affiliate, an NBC affiliate, when they know that network goes off the air at a certain time. Why would you do that? So you can sit there and go nuts listening to the dead tone along with the color bars? Like, it made no sense to post this at that time if the objective was for anyone to see it, whether it was a legitimate missing persons thing or a prank. It made no sense to post it at this time with any kind of expectation that people would see it. And obviously we don't know who did and didn't see it when it actually did go live in 1989, because back then, we're still far away from viral video. We're far away from the internet. You can't email your friend and say, hey, did you see that weird stuff on the TV last night? Best case scenario, you could call a friend and be like, hey, turn on channel 5. This missing persons banner's been stuck on here. It's kind of weird. That's about as far as it would go. So, I mean, it's very unlikely we'll ever know who actually did or didn't see that as it went live that day to even verify that it actually happened at that time and place. There's no definitive answers. There's none. We can't definitively prove who this person in the picture is. We can't determine if that person was named Joanna Lopez. We can't determine for certain if there's a Joanna Lopez that went missing around that time. We can't determine what her circumstances were. Well, we can certainly infer that she was maybe a juvenile or in the juvenile system based on the number on there. We can't verify if the banner is real. There's just nothing that can be firmly put in stone, and maybe that's part of what has constantly kept people so focused in on this, but it's also in turn what might make it impossible to find a resolution to. And I honestly doubt very highly, I'm about 90 to 95% of the opinion that we'll never know. But again, like I said earlier, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't give a shit, especially, if this was a real person and all the circumstances of this thing are real, at least to a point that this was a young person who went missing and God only knows what happened to her. So, got off on a bit of a tangent, but really, that was the first part of what this person posted on Reddit that really got my attention. Was, again, backtracking a bit, a potential explanation for why Joanna Lopez's picture is so low grade. And, further possible explanations for why this would be so put together in such a lackadaisical manner. Like, maybe they just didn't really care that much. I'm like, slap it together, get it on there. Who really cares? It's just a runaway. That's pretty much anytime a kid goes missing, there's at least somebody out there that's like, it's just a runaway. But another part of the thing that I thought was very interesting, and again, if this was, a person telling the whole truth, this was very interesting, especially in regards to the fact that people have, anybody that's looked into this has had such a hard time finding anything of, evidentiary value or anything to back whether this is a real thing or not. Was this person on Reddit stated that especially, at least for that, the Chicago area, is extremely difficult to get information on people that are in that system. And this person said, speaking as somebody who's been in that system, even then, it would be difficult for her. I don't know why I'm saying her. I don't know if it was a he or her, but it would be difficult for that individual or even their family to get, information they needed pertaining to their time in that system. So if you were specifically in that system, and even you and your family have a hard time getting information, imagine the borderline impossibility of you as a random stranger finding pertinent information. So again, that's a potential explanation for, at least in part, what's going on here and why it's so difficult to find any evidence. And again, you're dealing with a pre-internet period of time. There aren't a bunch of, now every street corner has a camera on it. All these things we have now that should help us be able to track, a person's, last known actions, their last known whereabouts. That stuff for the most part wasn't here. Some businesses had security cameras and stuff, but a lot of them would be inside their buildings. Like a case like this from 1989, when someone goes missing, it's unlikely you're going to have much to go on, especially if that person wasn't really around other people when they were last seen. And if this is someone who managed to escape from the juvenile system, that's all we have to go on. Somebody escapes in the middle of the night from the facility they're being kept at. That's it. They can say, yeah, she, when the following morning came and we went to check, or they were supposed to come down, she's suddenly gone and we don't know where she went. You may have at that point information on when the last person was last seen, but you have nothing. Nothing. You don't have a video camera 3 blocks away that shows her getting into a mysterious white van. You don't have, anything. Really. So that's something we all, it's nowadays with unsolved crimes, you usually have something out there. The most recent one with the Gabby Petito and Brian Landry thing. One of the things that got a lot of attention was when they had to deal with the police, presumably shortly before Gabby was murdered. And so we've had this police body cam video to see. That's not something that we'd be capable of accessing or would even exist really back in 1989. So it's frustrating, but sometimes the frustration just keeps you there. And this is something that, and again, because I've been so hooked into this, I'm not putting it above or below anything else. There's, a lot of strange mysteries that have happened, a lot of people that have gone missing that went missing with little fanfare. And obviously this is getting a lot of attention online, so it's like, oh, this is blowing up, so now everybody wants a piece of it. And I'm not trying to dive in there and, start, posting a lot and start, getting defensive. Well, I know what happened. Even though I don't have the evidence, I can tell you what happened. I guarantee you, because I know this about this shit. No. This is just something that, certain things catch my attention a lot more than other things. And it's not even a matter of whether it's a big popular thing or not. There's a lot more grandiose, quote, internet mysteries than this that I've heard about and been like, wow, that's interesting. And then I go on with my life. And this one has stuck with me for over a week now. Certainly not to the point of an obsession, but to the point where I actually kind of want to just, keep track of it and follow it while, more things are happening. Or potentially more things are going to happen. And obviously if you've watched my channel, you'll know that something that I cover a lot are kind of unsolved murders and missing persons cases. And a lot of those that I cover are things that are extremely obscure now. So trust me, I'm not diving into this because it's popular. It's like the flavor of the week and it's popular, so I'm jumping in there to get views. I've been doing YouTube content constantly for over 5 years now, constantly covering all manner of different things. I've put probably several 100,000 hours into my content, and I'm not even to 4,000 subs yet. And I make through, YouTube, AdSense and all that stuff. I make $60 a month. I make $2 a day. Trust me, I'm not in this for the money. I could be spending a lot of time that I'm spending on this stuff, making money, working at another job. So it ain't about the attention. It ain't about, jumping into something that I know can blow up in views. It's something I'm interested in. And if I'm interested in it, I'm going to pursue it. And if it's something that is worth putting on my channel, or something that wouldn't be disrespectful to discuss on my channel, then I'm going to go and do that. It's my YouTube channel. So I got pulled into this. I saw Nexpo's video, and the image, stayed with me. And after the intrigue of the really kind of creepy, dark, undiscernible image, when the bizarreness of that passes, and your goosebumps go away, then you pull yourself together and you start looking at what is really of intrigue, which is the mystery of who this person was. And not just that there's someone who showed up in a creepy picture once that randomly ended up on a news channel for whatever reason. So there's still, here I've been rambling for Lord knows how long. And honestly, when I'm done here, I'll probably think of 20 new things I wish I would have discussed here, because it's that strange and that interesting. And that kind of, it overwhelms you with thought and reflection. And I think it's important personally. Some people may call this naive. I really don't give a shit. But I think it's important to, if you're going to really try to dig and dive and get to every single resource possible, I think it's important to do it with the working objective of, this is a real person who had a real life, had real struggles, and maybe disappeared in a horrific way. Because I feel like that, that's a much greater motivating factor to try to find the truth. Which, why put time and energy into this if it's not going towards something? Treat this like it is or was a living, breathing human being, because it very likely was. I feel like if you go into this with the attitude of like, maybe it's real, maybe it's not, you might do some half-assed investigation. Just realize that when all is said and done, your perspective or your hypothesis, or whatever you want to call it, might prove to be inaccurate. But at least you made it to the end. It wasn't for naught just because it didn't, when you're investigating something this dark, potentially, it shouldn't be about egos. It shouldn't be about, I solved it, I did it. It's just about finding answers to stuff. In investigating kind of old obscure crimes and mysteries around the Portland area where I live, I'll discover things about stuff that I've never heard anybody ever talk about. I've never heard any local historians write about. And it might be something that I'm discovering for the first time that nobody else has. I don't jump on my bandwagon and start ranting about it and act like I'm the greatest investigative mind in the history of the world, because I'm not even close to that. But, there's got to be some humility when you're investigating stuff like this, or else your own head can get in your way. And that's something I've spent years trying to do, is trying to get my head to get out of my way when I'm trying to look into and examine things like this, so you can have, hopefully, as clear of a mind as possible and get better results wherever that leads you. So, in departing now, like I said, I'll probably think of a bunch of things I wish I would have said, but I feel like now, a couple days later on down the road, having that information more impressed in my mind, I was in a better position here to actually discuss and reflect on the case with a decent amount of knowledge based on what is generally known, as opposed to the video I did a few days ago, where I was kind of just learning on the fly. And it was more me bringing more in-depth attention to what has been done so far and bringing that to new viewers, people that have maybe heard about this in passing and just don't know a lot about it yet, or maybe they saw Nexpo or blame it on George's videos, which they're brief because they're segments in videos that have other segments. So they go, they go in depth into the story, but they don't cover every single little thing. And I think a part of that is because so much of it is so unknown that, you might want to, in one part, you might want to reserve a serious investigation or reaching a final opinion until more is known, as opposed to doing, a super duper in-depth, going through everything super deeply and spending, a couple weeks trying to analyze it and understand it. But still, when all is said and done, all you have are theories. Because, again, so much is unknown. So I'm going to keep my eye on this, absolutely. See what others may find out there. And I've tried, using what little resources I have to kind of try to find something. And it seems like most of the routes I would take, somebody else out there has already done. So if I think of something else, I'll chase that. But otherwise, I might be sitting back with the rest of you and watching other people that might have access to stuff that I either didn't know was out there or stuff that I just generally don't have access to like they would or do. So all that said, I'd like to thank you so much, y'all, for stopping by. I know this isn't the most exciting video in the world because it's just me talking, but it's just more reflection on this thing from a more clear head, I would say. And there's just still so much we don't know. But again, thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new to the channel or you haven't done it yet, give the video a like. Share it around if you want to. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. If you're into, the type of content that I do, this is a little bit off from what I normally do, but I do, again, still do a lot of content that delves into mysteries, missing persons, unsolved murders, things like that do kind of potentially connect into this. So there's a lot of stuff on my channel. If you're new, you could get lost in there. So those are ways, you can help my channel if you like it, if you choose. And all that said, till next time, this has been Steve the Amateur Historian.